In cognitive behaviour therapy, CBT for OCD, there are lots of different approaches to treatment that we can take, each of which with the intention of alleviating the distress caused by OCD and its many subtypes. Exposure and response prevention is a fundamental part of any OCD treatment, and it's particularly effective in terms of addressing the behavioural aspects. But we also have certain interventions which are purely targeted on helping us to understand how our appraisals of intrusions contribute to our distress. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about three of the main types of cognitive distortions that contribute to the OCD presentation. So in this video, I'm going to focus on thought-action fusion, thought-event fusion, and thought-object fusion. So stay with us. So we get somewhere between 40,000 to 60,000 thoughts every single day. And the vast majority of these don't mean that much to us and generally don't generate that much distress for us. We also know that intrusive thoughts are experienced by people who don't have a mental health diagnosis like OCD. So in this particular diagram, we can see that intrusive thoughts are commonplace, both in what we call non-clinical populations, people without any type of diagnosis, and also in people with the OCD diagnosis. So the question for us is, why then do some people's appraisal of intrusive thoughts lead to distress, and in other people they don't lead to distress? So the difference that we understand between people who go on to develop OCD and those that don't is in the meaning that we attach to our intrusive thoughts. In OCD, rather than us dismissing the intrusive thought as just being just another thought, we believe that the intrusion says something potentially awful about us, for which we must then take responsibility. And the three types of meaning that we can give to intrusive thoughts that we're going to talk about in this video are thought-action fusion, thought-event fusion, and thought-object fusion. So as we look at this particular diagram, we can see that it's not the intrusive thoughts themselves that leads to the change in our emotional state, the compulsion and the avoidance, and the changes in the way we think. It's the meaning that we give to them. So I'm just going a little bit more detail now about exactly what these particular meanings actually mean in relation to the intrusive thoughts and what the implications of that for us are. So thought-action fusion, this is where we fuse together a thought, an intrusive thought, with the action associated with it, okay? And just over here on the right-hand side of the screen, all of these things here, I'm just kind of giving some little examples of the nature of these appraisals and what it means basically when thought-action fusion is being played out or appraised in our intrusions. So this first one is that we've got that thinking this means that I might act on it. Thinking this thought, this intrusion, is just as bad as acting on it. And lastly, thinking this means that I have acted on it. So in all of them, we can see how we are joining together the thought with the action, and it's from this that we then start to experience the anxiety, the fear of, whether the thought is the same as the action. It will lead us then to the compulsions, to make sure that we don't act on it. It will then also lead us to some degree of avoidance. We will avoid situations where we are at risk of acting on this intrusion. And then there will be changes in the way we think and changes in the way we use our attention, which are just basically focused there on looking out for danger, potential danger, if this thought action appraisal was actually true. Okay. Next, we've got what we call thought-event fusion. And thought-event fusion is similar to thought-action fusion, except this time it's that thinking something is the same as an event happening. Okay, so whereas previously it's an action, this is where, if I think that something bad will happen, I don't know, such and such will be in a car crash or something like that, then that is exactly the same as the bad thing happening. Okay, so again, our examples here on the right hand side of the page are: thinking this means that something bad will happen. Thinking this means that I want something bad to happen. And thinking this basically means that my bad thoughts made this event happen. Okay. So we can see here that we're having the thought and we're linking it to something happening in the real world and assuming responsibility for that. Okay. And heightened responsibility beliefs, which we'll talk about in another video, they are part of that OCD presentation. So we're almost taking responsibility for things that aren't necessarily our responsibility, our control, simply because we've got this fusion between what we think and events in the real world. Lastly, we've got thought-object fusion. And this is a particular type of fusion which we might see in contamination-based OCD and also hoarding type OCD. It is also, present in all of the other OCD subtypes, but in this case, you can just relate it quite easily to some of those particular subtypes that I just mentioned. So first off, this object is now infected by my bad thoughts. So if I was to, for instance, while I'm holding a particular object in the house, and I was to have an intrusive thought, maybe a sexualized or a harm-based thought, all of a sudden that object is now contaminated and associated with that bad thought. The next bit, particularly common in hoarding, throwing this object away means that something bad will happen to the person that gave me it. So if there's something there, it could just be something really small. It could be, I don't know, a cinema ticket, maybe that somebody had bought for us when we went to see a film with them. Rather than us just seeing, a ticket stub or a piece of paper there, we will fuse that with the person that gave it to us. So we'll start to cherish that rather than throw it away or rather than get rid of it, because it means something really bad to us if we were to do that. It means that we don't like the person, basically, or something bad will happen to the person. And lastly, we've got, again, also in the hoarding subtype, getting rid of this object says something bad about me, or it means that I'm a bad person. For instance, it means that I'm a careless person, a not nice person, horrible person, because getting rid of this says something bad about me.